Joining me now is Vamsi Kanuri. He's a marketing professor at Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. Much of Professor Kanuri's research centers on social media and how it can be optimized as a marketing tool. In fact, I was just tweeting just a few seconds ago about the ND Day, that's the hashtag ND Day, about our event as we continue to go. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bob.
So much right now is centered around social media. Tell me a little bit about your social media research and specifically how social media today is a tool.
Absolutely. In an era where so much commerce has moved digital, a lot of firms are looking for new ways to drive traffic to their websites and mobile devices. I think social media can provide a sizable portion of that traffic. So in that sense, I think social media can be used to drive a lot of digital advertising revenue.
So how are people really maximizing the effectiveness of a good social media strategy and campaign?
Good question. What I'm about to say is going to be pretty straightforward and simple. Firms, are trying to assess when their customers are actually engaging with their content. People use devices differently. For example, they interact with newspaper differently from they interact with content on radios. Similarly, they have a specific time when they're online looking at social media content. So firms are trying to leverage the time that the audience are giving them to consume content in order to promote their products.
Yeah, speaking of time, that's so valuable to everybody today. And I would imagine a lot of people would think, if I want to get my message out there, I'm going to be constantly tweeting or Instagramming or snapping or whatever the case. Tell us about some of the social media don'ts.
There's a ton of them. Rather than don'ts, I'd like firms to focus on how best they can harness the time that consumers are giving them. So one of the things I see a lot in this domain is firms posting their content haphazardly without a strategy. So I recommend firms to go into social media thinking of a big strategy, And for example, consistency is a big deal, big thing. So firms would want to think about posting their content consistently at a certain time of the day, be it morning, afternoon, or evening, or whatever time that works for them. Because there's already so much uncertainty in social media metrics, as in what drives people to engage with content. You don't want to induce more uncertainty into the process. So by training consumers to consume your content at a certain time, you're basically making your content that much more effective.
So you're talking specifically consistency in time, or is it consistency in time and message?
Consistency in time. But messaging is also, the content of the message is also a big deal. So in my recent research, we find that there's significant heterogeneity in terms of when consumers are likely to consume certain types of content. For example, they're more open to consuming negative content in the morning than in the afternoon. They're more open to consuming content that requires a lot of cognitive processing in the afternoon compared to morning. So understanding these nuances will help firms drive their engagement up.
Probably not too many people 30 years ago would have thought that we would be to the point that we are today with social media. 30 years ago, people would say, social what?
Yeah.
So tell me, how do you think it's going to evolve from here?
Yeah, another great question. There's always going to be new technologies, right? Driving content and new technologies where consumers congregate. So rather than relying on the technology, I would ask firms to understand how that technology is impacting their customers. So in the 1800s, we had newspapers, then we had radio, TV, now we have social media. Tomorrow, there's going to be a next big thing. I'm talking to Nielsen, they say podcast advertising is going to be the next big thing. All the podcasts have been around for 10 years now. No one has really thought of podcasts as a vehicle to monetize their content or products. So, rather than rely on what the next big thing is, figuring out how that next big thing is going to affect your consumers, I think is going to, help the firms well.
And Professor, that sounds like your next big project.
Yeah.
Tell us the next big thing. All right.
Yeah.
Professor Kanuri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much,
College of
Bob.
Mendoza. We
Appreciate it. Yeah.